Assembly Broadcasting to keep members in the spotlight for the next 4 items. Agenda item 1 then, members, is apologies. We have apologies from Pat, Daniel, Harry and Justin, and delighted that we have Nicola, Diane, Robbie and myself here for this evidence session. No chairperson's business and no matters arising on this occasion, so we can move to agenda item 4, which is our oral briefing from the Integrated Education Fund on the Integrated Education Bill. Can I ask Assembly Broadcasting to remove members from the spotlight and to add our witnesses? Can I refer members to a briefing paper from the Integrated Education Fund on page 7 of your packs, and give a warm welcome to Richard Lemon, Chair of the Integrated Education Fund, Tina Merron, Chief Executive Officer of the Integrated Education Fund, and Paul Collins, Head of Public Affairs and Advocacy at the Integrated Education Fund. You're very welcome, folks. Apologies for the short delay this morning. I'm delighted to be able to give you up to 10 minutes to make an opening statement and then facilitate questions from our members. Over to you.
Good morning, Chair. Thanks very much. Just before the presentation, if I may make some quick introductions. There are only 3 of us, so it won't take long. I'm Richard Lemon. I chair the IEF Board of Directors. The board is made up of 15 members who, like me, are voluntary, unpaid members. Some in employment and some are, like me, retired. Board members come from a range of disciplines and professions, including, of course, education. And we are united by one thing, which is, of course, our passion for integrated education. So the Integrated Education Fund itself is a registered charity with only 11 employees. It receives no government funding whatsoever. So all the salaries and grants paid out are from generous donors. I just wanted to make those points. You've already mentioned Tina Merron, who's Chief Executive, and Paul Collins, Head of the Public Affairs and Advocacy. And I'll pass over to Tina Merron, Chief Executive, to give the presentation.
Thanks.
Thank you. The Integrated Education Fund has been working since 1992 towards a Northern Ireland where children from different traditions learn and play together in the same classrooms, in the same schools, and where there is a respect and celebration of religious and cultural diversity. The divisions in our society would be harder to overcome as long as the vast majority of young people are educated separately in a segregated system. The Fund shares a vision held by the majority of citizens of a united community and shared future. We see the development of more integrated education in response to parental demand as a crucial step in that direction. Integrated education alone, of course, will not resolve all Northern Ireland's problems, but it will surely help to undermine the division which is continued by the current system. We want a normal education system where pupils of all religions and none are educated together in the same classrooms every day. However, it is nearly 25 years since the Good Friday Belfast Agreement, and we genuinely struggle to find examples of proactive steps taken by the Northern Ireland Executive and the Department of Education to encourage and facilitate integrated education. 2021 marks the 40th anniversary of the setting up by parents of the first integrated school in Northern Ireland. Now, thanks to the actions of parents across Northern Ireland, there are 68 integrated schools. This includes 4 new integrated schools this September, which transformed to become integrated through the democratic actions of their parents. 2 more schools are currently waiting a decision from the Education Minister. We are also working with approximately 30 schools exploring the process of transformation. Indeed, this week, we've had another 5 schools request information and meetings to discuss transformation. We believe in parental choice. If parents want a Catholic maintained, controlled, Irish medium, independent, grammar, or indeed an integrated school, they should have that choice where possible, where there is evidence-based demand and wherever possible. There is no lack of controlled and Catholic provision. In fact, there is an excess of these school places. But there is a genuine and clear demand for more integrated schooling, which has not been met. This is evidenced by more than 1 in 5 first preference applications to integrated colleges at post-primary level being turned down due to the lack of places. thereby forcing children who may have been educated up until then in an integrated environment into a religiously and culturally divided system. Whilst it is the case that not all integrated schools are oversubscribed, in many cases they are, leaving parents and children with no access to integrated provision. If there isn't an integrated school in your area, then there's no realistic choice. The department does not measure this. They only measure demand based on existing schools. This current system maintains the status quo with only minor changes taking place. The Department of Education does not adequately plan for integrated education. It is the IEF and NICE that supports parents to do this. Indeed, the IEF has invested over 26 million since 1992 in new and transformed schools. In that time, the department has not funded the formation of any new integrated school. The IEF would agree that first and foremost, parents want a good school for their child. And survey after survey shows that the majority of parents want these to be integrated schools. The most recent survey was a Lucid Talk Northern Ireland-wide attitudinal poll in 2021, which showed that 71% in Northern Ireland believed integrated education to be the main model in our education system. It also revealed that a further 73% of people here would support their child's school becoming integrated. The IEF currently funds the IntegrateMySchool.com website, which enables parents to register their support for their child's school to transform. Recent results from this work has led to 6 parental ballots. The ballots are confidential and they're carried out by the independent body Pacifica Election Service. This is formerly known as Electoral Reform Service. The actual results of these ballots range from 71 to 95% supporting the school to transform. The IEF supports the policy objectives of this bill because, despite an existing statutory duty on the department through the 1989 Education Reform Order to encourage and facilitate integrated education, this has not led to any strategic commitment or significant action by the department to proactively support the growth and development of integrated schools. Instead, the department funds NICE to encourage and facilitate integrated education and may consider that this funding is their duty fulfilled. Past experience with the Department of Education has not been encouraging. In 2013, the department turned down a development proposal from Drumara Integrated College to increase its permitted enrolment number. The reason given was that this would have a negative impact on the enrolments of non-integrated schools in the area. The college challenged this decision through a judicial review, which found that area planning for schools did not sufficiently take into account the demand for integrated schooling, ruling that integrated education should be recognised at all levels of strategic planning for education in Northern Ireland. However, in 2021, the former Education Minister Peter Weir again used impact on other schools as a reason to turn down a development proposal from Strangford Integrated College. He went on to reverse that decision after receiving a pre-action protocol letter advising that the school was considering a legal challenge. Again, past experience of the department's handling of the independent review of integrated education from November 2016 has given us little comfort, as there were 39 recommendations but only 8 have been delivered to date. The current independent review of education brought forward as part of the New Decade New Approach document is important and is something we have been campaigning for and delighted to see. However, the timeline for this work is already slipping. The report is likely to be published in early 2023. It will then be considered by our politicians, and who knows how long it might take for an agreement to emerge before implementation can begin. What is needed is a systemic change to our education system. This is not a small ask. Change at this scale will take time, but we believe that the independent review must set out a roadmap to normalise our education system. A roadmap that is focused on early childhood development and student achievement, as well as on equity, inclusion and reconciliation. Putting children first means addressing the segregated nature of education. The IEF therefore agrees with the policy objectives of this bill because integrated education needs to be effectively planned for. There is a significant gap between clear public support for more integrated education and what is presently available. The department has not acted in response to the clear aspirations of the wider community for further integrated education endorsed by the Good Friday Belfast Agreement. More than 1 in 5 first preference applications to integrated colleges are currently being turned down due to lack of places. Many communities in Northern Ireland do not have the choice of an integrated nursery, primary or post-primary. Parents are not asked what type of education vision and choices they would prefer. It is assumed what they have is what they want. Widespread grassroots support for integrated education means the time has come for the department to promote this model of education, not to leave it to charities alone. This bill will place a duty on the department and other educational bodies to promote rather than to simply encourage and facilitate integrated education. This will go a long way towards achieving the vision and aspiration that we all have for an integrated and inclusive system.
Thank you, Tina. That complete your opening statement, yeah? Thanks very much indeed for those opening remarks. I'll bring members in for questioning at this stage, and we have ample time for questions. So can I start with Nicola Brogan, MLA, please? Thanks.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to the three of you there for your presentation. It was very interesting. I'll just get straight into questions. First of all, about the Integrated Education Bill and what we're here to discuss this morning. First of all, did you get a chance to see the committee? Was it 2 weeks ago when we had a briefing from officials from the Department of Education about the review? And basically, I suppose you can describe it as a scathing review of the bill in front of us. That was their kind of assertion. Did you get a chance to see it, and how would you respond to the department's review of the bill?
Yes, we did. If I can answer that one. Well, I mean, Tina's already touched on the IEF's view of help, so-called help from the department over the years. So, I mean, to say that the IEF was very disappointed with the department's remarks is a real understatement. The integrated movement has seen and heard negativity from the department for nearly 40 years now. So we shouldn't be surprised, and yet the negative attitude and their sort of all too difficult approach has been shocking to us. I mean, as you know, one member referred to the approach as going to war on the bill, and another withering critique of the bill. So yeah, for the integrated movement, the department have consistently done the absolute minimum when it comes to integrated education, and for almost 40 years now, the IEF has resolutely worked, despite the resistance of the department and others, to provide, encourage, promote integrated education. That's the IEF has been doing that, and it struggles to keep up with the demand in an environment where the call for integrated education and Irish medium are growing faster than ever. As I said at the beginning, with 11 employees, it's a struggle at the moment. So yeah, great disappointment.
Yeah, listen, I can understand that. I just want to give you an opportunity to respond to it. Another point, again, that was discussed at committee yesterday with the bill sponsor, Kelly Armstrong, and her policy advisor, and with NICE, was the duty to promote integrated education. So throughout the discussions yesterday, we suppose it moved from this duty to promote. There was throughout the discussion, even Kelly herself said, you know what, maybe there's room to change this here description or the wording of it, because essentially having the word promote there elevates integrated education over other sectors. So first of all, can you understand concerns of other sectors, and namely, because it was discussed yesterday as well, I'm just going to give an example of the Irish medium sector and how they would have concerns maybe with integrated education being elevated above them and the other sectors. And do you agree that there is room to remove the word promote from the bill?
Nicola, if I can come in and answer this here, I mean, I think what we were talking really here about, what we're emphasising, is there an overriding demand for integrated education. We feel it is the duty for the department to pick up on this. If I can quote back some statistics, Tina's already mentioned the Northern Ireland attitudinal poll, which said that 73% of children were wanted their children to go to integrated schools. Within that survey alone, political parties, that was shown that political supporters, DUP 58% supported integrated schools, Sinn Féin 74%, SDLP 77%, UUP 78%, Alliance 94%. There's other surveys in quote as well, the ARC, a lifetime survey of 2020, 69% of children preferred their children to be in a mixed school environment. The Northern Ireland Statistics Agency in 2019, 76% of young people want religion not to be an issue. Again, backed up by Sky News poll in March 2018, 69% of people believe that every school in Northern Ireland should be integrated. In fact, this week alone, the Commission for Victims and Survivors said that segregated education system, which we have in Northern Ireland, 70% were against this. And in fact, if I can just follow on, the ballots at the 4 schools that opened this year, became integrated, all had ballots and all supported their schools becoming integrated. So the evidence here is that people want their schools to become integrated, but the reality is it's only 7.5%. And even with all these schools becoming integrated, you're talking a tiny fraction, maybe not even 0.5% increase in the overall population. How long will it take to get to 10%? How long will it take to 20%? How long to 50%? The action has been taken at the moment by a charity with 11 staff.
Right, so although there is their support for it, and I personally do support integrated education, but this bill is asking us to put into law that integrated education is elevated above all other sectors. So although that support's there, and there is support from all political parties in that, and I do think the integrated education sector should be supported and encouraged to flourish and to grow in that. But I'm asking your opinion on whether or not it should be elevated above other sectors. And given that even Kelly Armstrong, the sponsor of the bill, yesterday said that she would be willing to change the wording from that duty to promote, would you agree with that there?
Can I come in here?
Still be the word promote there?
Can I come in here, Nicola? Just to say that Department of Education do not plan for integrated education. Okay, there's no planning authority for integrated education. There's historical underfunding, and what we are really keen for is for the department and others, not us, others to actually assess demand, not demand on the existing schools, but go out and ask people. So if you take the word promote, if they still are there and charged with assessing demand, that is the most crucial thing, because we have the evidence to prove that people want integrated education. So for us, it's about assessing demand, not based on what you've got, but actually go out and ask parents in the future, in the next 5 years or 20 years, what kind of system do you want? If we don't do that, we're just going to have more of the same.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll leave that point there. The only other point I want to touch upon was the independent review and education, which I know you touched upon there as well in your presentation. And basically, I'm questioning the timing of the bill. Now, I know that nobody expects a quick turnaround from the introduction of the panel or the appointment of the panel to actual recommendations being implemented. But is there the possibility of having making 2 jobs out of one thing here? Would it be maybe better to wait until we have the findings from the review before bringing forward this type of bill?
Yeah, in our view, no. I mean, in our view, as you've said, the review is likely to take some time. It may report in 2023, but then there's all of the other procedures, the consideration by the department, going to the assembly to agree, politicians to agree, and then to implement it through law. So yeah, that's going to take quite some time, and we don't know what it's going to say. It's an independent review, which we can't anticipate that, although we would certainly expect it to address in some way the needs of integrated education. And so that's going to take, that could take anything from 5 to 10 years, going by previous experience of some of these reviews, and this is going to be a complex one. So in that case, and given all of the evidence that Paul has mentioned, and we know there is a great demand for integrated education now, we feel that it's not acceptable to wait until the outcome of the review. It would just take too long, and large sections of the public are crying out for more integrated education now.
All right, thanks for that. I got the same kind of response from Kelly yesterday, so you're definitely singing from the same hymn sheet there. Listen, thanks very much for your presentation, for coming along. It's really important that we do get the opportunity to discuss all this here. It is an important bill, and there's lots of detail in it, so we do need to hear from everybody. So I appreciate you coming here, and again, it's nice to have that kind of open discussion about it. So thank you, and thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Nicola. Can I bring in Diane Dodds, MLA, please? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. There is something really a bit crazy going on with the internet here, so I kind of dropped in and out during the presentation. Apologies for that. Again, a bit like Nicola, I mean, I feel we're kind of covering pretty much the same points over and over again in many ways in this particular exercise. I think everyone recognises, and I think there is pretty much a consensus across the committee, that there is an issue around 7.1 of the bill, where we talk about must apply a presumption that it will be an integrated school. So any new school that is to be built, the department will have a presumption in law that that school should be an integrated school, unless something happens to say otherwise. And I think that is a problem with the bill, and I think that does set the integrated sector on a different course to other sectors across education. And we kind of this has become a theme running through the evidence that is and the questioning on this particular bill. So just to lay that out for you, that's just my honest assessment of the evidence and the questions that we've heard so far.
Can I come in here and respond to that, Dan? I don't know if you heard the bit, because you said you're dipping in because of your internet on the presentation, but we believe in parental choice. We believe that parents want a Catholic maintained, controlled, Irish medium, independent grammar, or indeed an integrated school. They should have that choice wherever there is evidence-based demand, wherever it's possible. So we believe in parental preference. So we would say if there's something wrong with this clause that everybody can't agree, I would strongly recommend that the committee get behind Kelly and work with her to make sure that it fills whatever you require here. But for us, it is about parental choice. And the other point I'd like to make as well is that parental choice should be based on some kind of evidence. Should be evidence-based demand. I'm not sure if you're aware, but if you want to start a new integrated school, you would need to have expressions of interest. If you want a school to transform, you need a parental ballot. So what I would say is that evidence-based demand for all types of parental preference is very important going forward, and we would support all parental preferences.
But you understand that clause 7.1 doesn't do that. Clause 7.1 says that any new school that we're planning for. Now, Kelly always, and I mean, I've had informal discussions with her, I've had discussions online. Kelly always comes back with, but sure, there's never been a new school, or there's not likely to be a new school in Northern Ireland. But that's not the point. This is the law that we're talking about, and that, and I've had discussions with all the other sectors as well. And this seems to be emerging in as a theme constantly as an issue. Just laying it out honestly and openly in open session. That seems to be a theme, and that seems to be a theme actually across all parties as well.
If I could come in there to reiterate the point that I made around those statistics, it is the overwhelming opinion of people in Northern Ireland that they want their schools to be integrated. So it makes sense that if we're opening a new school, that the default settings should be integrated. I mean, and also backing up the point Tina made, all 4 of those schools became integrated this year, had to go through the development plan process, and also they all have parental ballots. The vast majority of parents voted for their school to become integrated. So
I suppose where I would want to sort of try to draw out the conversation, though, is that, I mean, I went to a school, even in the dark old days when I was going to school, that hardly anybody remembers anymore. I mean, when I was going to school, I went to a school where there were both people from both communities at that school. My children went to the same school where there were people at both communities from that and from every other community around Northern Ireland at that school. So I suppose the point I'm making, maybe incoherently, is that, you know, it doesn't have to belong to the integrated movement to be to have children being educated together. So
Dan,
I think that, and I do think that that is an issue. I mean,
Dan, if I can come across here and say a point, and backing up your own personal experience. In my own personal experience, I went to a Catholic maintained primary school and a Catholic grammar school. I never had a conversation with someone of the opposite religion until I was 17 years of age. My two daughters go to integrated preschool, primary school, and now secondary school. Their friends are from Mexico, they're Spanish, they're Italian. The Protestant Catholic thing is way down the list. And I think the only way we can guarantee our children having that type of education in the future is having an integrated education available to all people in Northern Ireland. And I think that's the only way forward here, Dan, to be bluntly honest.
And I do actually believe and practiced it in my family, because that's where my children went. They went to a state grammar school, which was, and is very representative of the community of where I live. So I'm just saying, I mean, I'm not intending to promote a thing. So, I mean, I do think that there is an issue around 7.1, and I think that that has emerged as a theme, and I think Chris will back me up in all of the evidence we have taken so far. I think that there are issues around, if I look at it, things like 4.1, where you're asking the to replace to encourage and facilitate with to encourage, facilitate and promote. I'm not sure that the department does that for any other sector. I think Nicola was making that point as well. So
I suppose, Darren, if we come in here just to say we really would be delighted if the department encouraged and facilitated it. We don't think they particularly do that well. So this is why we think the promotion
and that is where we should be holding the department to account. I mean, that's the duty on the department. The department should fulfil its duty. I'm just saying, I'm just pointing out some of the issues. And with a bill, any bill, you will always get these kind of issues, and it's good to be able to talk them through. And I think again, 5A is an issue, where the department is tasked in law with to aim to increase the demand for the provision of integrated education, but it's not tasked with aiming to increase the demand for education in the maintained sector or wherever. And again, back to Nicola's point of making, we want a level playing field. We want parents to have the choice, but we have to make sure that choice is not unbalanced in
come in here, Dan, and say about level playing field. Yes, we would love a level playing field, but we don't have one now. We don't have a managing authority for integrated education. There's historical underfunding for integrated education, and we currently ourselves in the IEF promote integrated education. We are actually having to fund it now. We promote integrated education on a regular basis through the Integrate My School website. We've outreach officers. We can just about cope with the demand from schools and parents who want integrated education. Like I said, 5 more this week. There is a lot of demand out there for integrated education, and it's not being met. So we think the department should be encouraged to promote integrated education.
Okay. Thank you very much. I've honestly set out some of the issues that I see with the bill. I think that there is a bit of a coalescing around those issues. When I listened, and I've listened to pretty much all the evidence sessions so far across all political parties, but allow them to talk for themselves, obviously. And it's really, really good to talk to you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm sorry I
Thanks,
did
Anne.
miss some of it because the connection is really so poor this morning for some
No
reason.
problem. No problem. Thanks for that, Diane. Can I bring in Robbie Butler, MLA, please? Thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Chair. I'm going to have to take the blame for the delay this morning. That was my fault, and you were very patient, and the Chair was very gracious with me when I did come back on. But thanks for meeting, and it is good, and we do need to talk to all the stakeholders, including those who are so passionate about integrated education. So please forgive us if we are probing you here, because I think there is a will to do something with this bill. There is a collective will, but there are reasonable questions that need to be asked, I think. And you've given some really good statistics in regard to some of the surveys that have been done, and the feedback that you get from parents and stuff. And we are also parents. We've also had those experiences that you talk of in our own education. We've been around the schools, and the schools are all excellent. But so when I answer these questions, guys, not to be pointy, they're genuinely to try and unpick some of the stuff that I'm in fact struggling to get my head around at the moment. Okay. So I asked the bill sponsor this yesterday, and I'm still not sure how this lands. Okay. So the bill sponsor talks about educating children together in reasonable numbers. You guys have said in your submission today that it is about educating our children together in a diverse setting, and educating our children together, be that from whatever background. Let's drop the Protestant Catholic thing here. Let's just say it's reasonable numbers. I didn't get an answer from the bill sponsor as to what reasonable numbers pertain to. Kelly did say that there's a policy underneath the strategic statements that says 40, 40, 20 and whatever. What I would like to get to the bottom of, if actually integrated education is specifically about integrating our children together, what do you guys see as reasonable numbers?
Reasonable numbers, as the department would define, would be reasonable numbers for the religious makeup of that area or that community. So whenever a school transforms, the IEF would specifically set out to help that school improve their religious balance. So we would encourage them to market to our wider community. We would encourage them to promote themselves as integrated. We would encourage them to go out and talk to parents, to appeal to the wider community. So over a period of time, they can and they do increase their religious balance. So it is a process. None of this will happen overnight. So we would aim at the end of the day for schools, and schools themselves would aim for a target of somewhere in the region of 30%. But if a school transforms, it can take up to 10 years to get to that target. And it actually also depends on what the community balance is in the area. So we would try and support them to get to that balance. I mean, Paul, you've got some stats.
Yeah, if I can come into it, just in terms, just as a thought to leave you with, Robbie, and the rest of the committee. This is figures from the Department of Education this year, 2020-21, and in controlled schools, 7.6% of that school population is Catholic.
Yep.
Catholic teen schools, the school population of Protestants is 1.2. They're not IEF figures. They're not some survey that some people have put aspersions against. They are figures from the Department of Education. That's the reality of the situation at the moment. By not pushing forward this bill in some form, that, as Tina said, is the status quo, shall remain. And if we talk about the independent view of education, whatever else is out there, it's going to be kicking this down the line. So
listen. There's no doubt that there is a will to work with this bill. There's absolutely no doubt. But the Department of Education have the second biggest fiscal budget out of the block grant at the moment, and we do know that because we've empty desks right across the service and other issues. We're probably education is costing too much at the moment, and so if we're looking at this, and one of the other reasons is because we have too many sectors, and if we had one sector, one common sector, I think everybody, most of us, and I say I'm glad to see that you're nodding your heads. If we had one educational system, then we could do away with a lot of this, and it would be, aspirationally, guys, trust me, I'm with you here. But what I'm still unsure, even with the answer that's given, is that what would constitute reasonable numbers? Because there's a very strong statement in what you have given us today. Okay, at a very and I suppose it bristles with someone perhaps like me, because this is 2021. To be fair, this is not 1972. It's not 1989. It's not 1998. But I've been thinking about this. integrated education now is very successful. It's very popular, and there's 40 years of track record now to go on. What's the difference in a pupil that comes out of integrated education as opposed to a pupil that comes out of the maintained or the controlled sector? Genuinely, what would you say that this is evidence that this tackles the divided society that we once had?
Robbie, can I say it's more than just pupils? An integrated school is mixed in the governors, the teaching breakup, and the pupils. And as I go back to my own personal experience, it is the experience of a lifetime of mixing and interacting with people of opposite religion, be they nationalist, Republican, loyalist, whatever. My children have had that experience where they've come from a nationalist, Republican background that I'm from, and they've mixed with loyalists, paramilitaries from every type of field and from every country around the world. That is the difference.
So you're absolutely right. My two kids went to Friends in Lisburn. So Friends in Lisburn will come under the maintain the statutory education sector now. In 2021, are we still talking about the same thing? Your experience and my experience is quite a while ago. My kids went to a school again. This is just to say that it's obviously a very mixed and diverse school, and I mean the school that I went to in Lisgarvey, which again is a state school. It was probably the figures would have been horrendous back in my day in the 80s. Unfortunately, there probably wouldn't have been a Roman Catholic that went to it, but now they're sitting in around somewhere in the region of 20%. So to go back to the first point, I really want to get into my head the purpose of this bill. Listen, I would like to see integrated education absolutely on the same playing field as controlled and maintained, if that is what the review picks out. But I do agree with you. We need to do something on this bill just in case we don't get the review, in case Stormont tumbles. Okay, I'm not suggesting we kick this into the weeds. I'm not. But what I need to be convinced of, I suppose, in terms of the totality of this bill, is I do believe we should integrate our children together. However, I don't think that's achieved by an ethos, because if it was simply an ethos and changing the curriculum, then that's not what this. That's not technically integrated education. I still go back to, are we not being ambitious enough? Because I think in terms of what the figures you said, 30%, you'd said, Gráinne, I don't know what 30% relates to in terms of a 10-year plan. And at the end of the 10 years, if that school had achieved integrated status or had carried it for 10 years, if they didn't have that 30%, would they then not be integrated? I mean, if we're going to educate our kids together, there has to be some benchmark.
Yeah, I would agree, Robbie, and I would say this integrated education, and once a school starts that process, it is a process. It's not something that's going to be achieved overnight. So if a school starts off with a minimum of 10% from one background, they should be aiming towards a minimum of 30% within a set period of time. Now, that's not always easily done. And also, as you will well be aware, there's some areas now where they have a large percentage of others who don't want to be identified. Young people don't want to be put into a box any longer. So the aim is to try and get 30% within a limited period, with a set period of time. Ideally, really, it should be a lot higher than that. But that's what the plan is. And each school's different, and each school's journey is different, depending on the background. And but one of the things I would like to point out, it's very important when you start this journey to have that religious mix on your board of governors, because they're the ones who provide the strategic direction of the school.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And I don't disagree about how we constitute boards of governors and stuff, and have to declare an interest as a board of governor. I think there's something we can do there right across the board in terms of how we would address that and shake that up. I think in some ways the bill undersells the confidence that you guys have in integrated education. It's a bit that Diana talked about, and so I think at the start you talked about the need for parental choice, and absolutely. But if parental choice is so strong, why does there need to be that presumption? So if you have so much confidence that when it's put to the public and you're convinced that 70 to 80% of the public want integrated education, why would you need a negative clause in the bill which places a presumption? And not only that, there are two negative clauses in there which says parents can't choose to have a controlled or maintained school based on either the demographics of the area or empty desks in other schools. Could you try and get my head around that? Because genuinely, if there's so much confidence, surely there doesn't need to be a negative resolution in there.
There's a lot of confidence in the demand, but the problem at the end of the day, it is up to the IEF, who's an independent charity, to support those parents. NICE have a role as well, but they're very small. And I am not underestimating the demand that's out there. We struggle to cope with the number. So, and it's actually a long process for a school. So if the department were tasked with promotion, they would put more resources behind it. For example, they're tasked with the promotion.
This isn't about promotion. This isn't about the promotion piece. This is about not looking at parental choice. So this is littered. Parental choice is littered through. And Kelly, to be fair, I do believe Kelly. I genuinely do believe it when she says she wants parental choice. What I can't understand is if parental choice is at the core and centre of this, why there needs to be a presumption, not the promotion, the presumption that a new bill.
Probably what we've been saying all along, the statistics bear out, but that's what the majority of people in Northern Ireland want. They want it.
I don't disagree with that.
Why would we not presume then that the model that we're going to start with for new school is integrated education, and then for other sectors to make a business case on parental preference and the local community for another model, whether it be Irish medium or whatever it might be?
Because the reality is that, as you've known, this has nothing to do with schools. This is about how we live. That's the biggest problem. We live segregated, which is actually a bigger problem than educated and segregated. Because the pupils who come out of school today, finish today, are not like us. They are not like us, no matter what school they go to. I would say many young people who go to any of the sector schools, including my own kids, didn't really know the difference between a Catholic and a Protestant. It's the nature of the day. And I think in this one, the presumption is counterproductive. First of all, to projecting confidence in what you have. It reverses. It actually is the opposite of parental choice.
Robbie, can I ask you, what would be your presumption then? Would your presumption be a control school where
I'm not.
The moment 7.6% is Catholic?
No, what I would suggest, if parental choice is how we do this, then parental choice it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We would agree with that, Robbie. If the scenario, if a parental choice is not there up front, we would agree this clause may need to be looked at. There's not an issue for us because we support parental choice.
And I think something, and this is why we need to tease these out, and we shouldn't see this as a poke at each other, genuinely, because you guys will think we're poking you. I read this and I think you're poking me and my kids at times. I know you're not, but I'll ask you the question. So in your statement, you say that the current system perpetuates division. Can you explain what that means and what evidence you've got to substantiate that in 2021? And it's not a poke. You put it in black and white there, so I want to see what is that.
Yeah, well, the division, if you're talking about the religious division here at the end of the day, Paul has just given you the stats from the Department of Education, where in controlled schools, there is only 7.6% Catholic. In Catholic maintained, there's only 1.2% Protestant. So those stats are there and they exist, and they have not improved over the years. So that's where the evidence is at the end of the day, that the segregated system continues with separation.
And just a final one, do you think that any of the other sectors might bristle at you calling their sector a segregated system? Because it seems to be a very broad brush. I know you've picked out the Catholic maintained, and I know that the figures in there are quite stark. That's not so much the case.
I was going to say, I'll let Richard come in this as well, just to say, we actually don't see the integrated sector as a sector. For us, it's not a sector, it's a movement for change. And that's where we're trying to move the education system forward. So before I go on any further, Richard, have a say.
Yeah, just to say, Robbie, yeah, it's good to talk about these things. And you've touched on the complexity of all of these arguments and the fact that there are other societal issues involved here too, in a complex society like ours. But the division is maintained, and the segregation is maintained by the system, which has a governance system for Protestant and Catholic schools. It's almost exclusively one or the other. You then have the number, the percentage, and the number of pupils which go to each sector. We've already touched on that, and it's all maintained by that system. The fact that you have the Department of Education, an education authority, and eight other publicly funded education bodies to cater for the school population in such a small place as Northern Ireland, which is, I think I'm right in saying, something like 335,000 pupils. I mean, that's incredible. But all of that system, all of those blocks, all of those organisations reinforce the segregation, and we've no issue. We believe it is segregated, and systems enforce
Okay,
that.
I'm going to finish with this because, and I appreciate your answer, and I didn't do this deliberately, guys, but I've just read the sentence again, and actually the sentence doesn't relate to segregation in education. What it talks about is it talks about education alone will of course not solve all of Northern Ireland's problems, but it will surely help to undermine the division which is perpetuated by the current system. So it talks about Northern Ireland's problems. So in essence, what integrated education is trying to do is to affect the wider societal problems, and that's a great aspiration. But what my problem is at the moment, or my with that statement, because it's quite a strong statement, is to suggest that other sectors maybe are feeding into that division and not helping it at all. And that's what I'm saying. Some of the things kind of bristle a little. You guys will bristle with some of the stuff that comes back, and rightly so, because integrated education is fantastic. There's no doubt the schools are excellent. But a sentence like that would then indicate that schools in other sectors, like my kids went to, aren't doing their job, aren't pulling their weight.
Just to be clear, there are some fantastic schools in Northern Ireland. Fantastic schools in all sectors, and this is not meant to be a criticism of any of those, of any of the governors, the teachers. Great standards throughout. That's not the point. We're talking about the system here.
Yeah.
The system,
Yes.
and the bodies that are in place at the moment reinforce that system.
I've no issue with that, but a sentence like that and what you've submitted leads someone to read something slightly. And listen, I have to say, education is not a place we should be playing any kind of politics. Me, anybody, it doesn't matter. We need the best for our kids. And listen, guys, I will work really hard with Kelly and the team on this bill, and I hope we can do something which is absolutely fair and reasonable. So, and thank you for your time today. I really enjoyed that. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Robbie. I appreciate your questions, Robbie. I think they're questions that people want to ask, and I think it takes a degree of openness and courage to ask them. And I think it does move us on. In that context, I suppose I would ask, and I leave it out there, as like you say, this isn't a challenge, this isn't a rebuttal, Robbie. I appreciate the spirit with which you asked those questions today, but would we accept separation of pupils to this extent on any other basis? That would be my question.
I get that, and then we get to the point of if integrating our kids together is the most important thing, then we need those quotas. And if it is, that's what I'm saying. So, and then we get down the line to saying, and that's why I opened up with that, Chris, to be fair, because we've all said this either in closed session or open session. Every one of us aspires to educating their children together. But if that is the case, if that's what it is, then the mechanics to do that aren't to tinker with ethos. The mechanics to do that are actually getting our children sitting in the same classrooms and so on. And this is what I'm trying to get to the nub of.
Okay, well, I think that's an important conversation as well. Then, if there's, and I think this bill, to be fair to the proposer, has at the very, very least facilitated, prompted really good exchanges between us as MLAs and with the witnesses that are coming to the committee stage of this bill. And if there's Darren spoke helpfully and constructively about consensus building earlier there, if there is a genuine, and I think that probably does have to be tested if I'm being honest, but if there is an emerging consensus in favour of addressing separation of pupils, and I appreciate that terminology matters, so if I ever use terminology that is not deemed constructive by people, I'd obviously adjust that. But
you don't on this topic, to be fair, Chris. On this you don't. Maybe on some other ones like the transfer. Not on this one.
If there is an emerging consensus around addressing separation of pupils, then obviously, as you say, getting into how we do that matters, and continuing to have conversations about understanding what is being proposed as to how we do that, and I think understanding the process of achieving reasonable integration is an important one, Robbie, and hopefully that's something that we can bottom out. Sorry for the side between Robbie and me here. I better move this on. Okay,
It's not always that convivial, to be fair.
I think we have Justin as well, but I'm going to ask my questions quickly because I realise we're short for time. Folks, you say that there is no managing or planning authority for integrated education. Obviously, that differs to controlled and maintained education. Do you think we should have a managing or planning authority for integrated education?
I think that's something that the review of education would need to look at about all the educational structures that currently exist. What the point we were trying to make is that NICE is not a managing authority. It doesn't have the power. It doesn't have the funding. We are actually supporting, along with other charities, some staff in NICE to meet the demand. So if it was a managing authority, probably we'd get more funding as well. So what we really want is a body that is strong enough to meet the demand from parents who currently want integrated education.
Okay, and so that in a sense is not a level playing field as it stands then?
Yeah.
Okay, and in the absence of a managing planning authority, we could be forgiven for expecting more from the Department of Education in relation to the encouraging and facilitating of integrated education. Let me ask you specifically, you've touched on it already, but what is your assessment of the work of the Department of Education and Ministers of Education to date to assess and meet the parental preference for integrated education?
They don't know what the parental preference is. We're the ones who bring it to them through our surveys. They don't assess demand for what parents want. They look at the existing schools and say, oh, this was only 7%, but that's because you may have or you may not have an integrated school in your area. If you don't have one, you don't have a choice. So it's about assessing real demand for integrated education. They don't do that, and they never have done that. So that would be one of the things I would say. And the department, in terms of working with NICE, as Richard has earlier on said, they do the minimum. The department only has ever done the minimum. We frequently have had to challenge the department through judicial reviews and various things like that. I find they're sometimes a bit disingenuous, and they said in the last presentation that 58 developer proposals managed to go through since 2010. Well, that only happened because we had a judicial review and were able to challenge them on their turning down some of those proposals because it was impacting other schools. So we've had a challenge. So the department have done the minimum, and we think they could do a lot more in terms of encourage and facilitate and promote as well, if that comes through with this bill.
And legislation is obviously one vehicle through which to make that change. Yeah,
I personally get the feeling the department don't want to rock the boat. The system is fine the way it is, and we can tinker at the edges, and we can get a few more schools and parents wanting to be integrated. That's fine, but the bulk of that work is left to the IEF and NICE to do, and it is a lot of work, and there should be more resources to do it.
Okay, if this bill is to legislate for the identification, assessment and meeting of parental preference for integrated education in an improved and a more robust way, are there existing effective and innovative ways in which parental preference can be assessed and met? The committee engaged recently with the Ulster University UNESCO Centre in relation to the Community Conversation Toolkit. Are there effective and innovative ways to achieve this aim out there, and would it actually be useful to specify any of those on the face of the bill?
Yeah, I was going to say, in terms of the work that the University of Ulster are doing is really good. I mean, they also identified a paper back earlier on this year where they looked at 32 isolated pairs of schools in rural areas where they had small numbers, and they have established the community conversation as a mechanism for schools to talk to each other. This would be two small schools in one small town, one maintain, one control, and both have small enrolment numbers. If these schools could come together and be one school, should it be an integrated school, shared school, or whatever, it would be much better for the children, and it would keep the school in that community, because a lot of these small schools in rural areas are closing because they're insufficient numbers and they're expected to move on to a similar school further away. So it's very important about the opportunities there is to look into the future for schools coming together in rural areas.
Okay, so that yeah, go ahead there. Yep.
Just to back up what Tina was saying there, this is now 40 years of integrated education, except for the anniversary of Lagan College opening. In that year, we've talked, a number of the people in the committee have talked about the great demand there is for integrated education, but the bottom line reality, Chairman, is only 7.5% of schools are actually integrated, and the 68 schools that are integrated, the model by which they develop to become integrated there's two ways to do it. Children or parents getting together and fundraising and building and developing the schools, or schools that were currently not integrated, becoming integrated by going through the transformation process. So that's the model we've kind of worked on. And if I can be bluntly honest, Chris, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, it's parent action has led to those 68 schools and this great demand and movement. It's never by politicians or by government departments.
Yeah, no, I accept that. There have been a few elected representatives closely involved in some of those community efforts over the years. But yeah, I'd absolutely take your point. I suppose it's the point I put to the Department of Education. Effectively, from their evidence, what I took was, if I as a resident of East Belfast have a hope or aspiration, or my children have a hope or aspiration to attend integrated preschools, integrated primary schools, integrated post-primary schools in the constituency, over to me to sort it out myself, effectively, is what I took from that evidence. And that can't be an acceptable approach or system. Okay, so the community conversation to me sounds like at least one of the innovative ways that we could explore to enhance how parental preference is being assessed and met, not only for the establishment of new provision, but for transformation and amalgamation as well. Then I think that's interesting to broaden it out in that way. My final question, just before I bring Justin McNulty in, then is it worth giving you an opportunity to say a little bit constructive and positively about the differences between an integrated school and a school which is open to all, as some would have discussed today? You mentioned Board of Governors, you mentioned ethos. Is it worth giving an opportunity just to, without injury to any type of school whatsoever, but just to help our understanding in relation to what some of those differences are?
Okay, well, just to say that you mentioned the Board of Governors, you've mentioned teachers, and one of the things that a bit of veto for employment exemption was be very important that actually bill goes through as well. And then it's down to the pupils. It's not just a mixing of the pupils, it is all elements. And it's also as well, every day in the classroom, they can talk to each other, they can challenge each other, they still keep their own political viewpoints, but they can have those discussions in an open forum where they feel safe to have those discussions. The other thing too is that sensitive issues are brought out into the open. The teachers are trained how to handle controversial issues, and they're taught through various courses of NICE run and training, anti-bias curriculum, things like that, how to deal with these difficult issues, and the children get the opportunity in an open forum to express their views, and it's not swept under the carpet. Okay,
thanks for that, folks. Really appreciate the evidence there. Can I bring Justin McNulty, MLA, in? Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, folks. Sorry I'm delayed coming on this call this morning, so apologies I missed your presentation. So I have a couple of questions. Basically, following establishment, what ongoing funding problems do integrated schools have and face that others do not? How would this bill create a level playing field?
I'm not sure individual integrated schools would have any more different problems from other schools in terms of individual funding. I think where the problem is starting those schools off. It's the formation, it's a planning of those schools, it's a formation of those schools. This is where if there was more support from the department would be very beneficial. But once the schools are established, they would be the same as any other school. I don't think they have any funding issues. So from that point of view, it is getting the department to help plan those schools and work with parents in the early stages to get those schools up and running.
Okay. In terms of DE already having expressing some concerns around the bill, Nancy and Ms Armstrong as well have accepted that there is a need for amendments to clarify matters set out in the bill. Are there any matters that you would like to see clarified or rectified by amendment in the bill?
Well, I think it'd be great to see the Education Committee members looking at the various clauses. We understand, we've listened to some of the concerns around Clause 7. Which, as well, we understand and we accept that, as we've made clear, we support parental preferences. There has to be any changes to that, and we would certainly support that. The other thing as well, we haven't actually mentioned this to Kelly, but if we are looking at going forward, which Clause 7, so even if it's amended or whatever, we would suggest that that all the different bodies should have to provide evidence based on the demand for that particular type of school in that area. It should, as Chris has talked about, community conversations, should it be a parental ballot? So that should be standardised across all the different areas, all the different sectors of education.
Okay, so your only concern in relation to the bill in its current format is around Clause 7? Is that correct? Sorry, I'm just...
We've also spoken to Kelly about Clause 1. And Clary's going to put an amendment in Clause 1 as well. It's like belt and braces stuff to ensure that any integrated school must go through the process, the legal process, to become an integrated school.
Okay, listen, thanks very much for your evidence today, folks. Although I missed it, apologies. I'm just running between meetings. And well done in your continued passion and commitment to move towards an integrated education system. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Justin. I think that covers all members at this stage then, folks. So that just leaves me to give you a very sincere thanks for your evidence today. As I mentioned previously there, I've found this really constructive, really substantive engagement, and hopefully this will be a productive committee stage that you will have contributed towards. And obviously we're glad to stay in contact with you as the committee stage progresses as well. So thank you, and thank you for all the work that you're doing.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, can I ask Assembly Broadcasting to remove our witnesses and add members back into the spotlight, and ask the clerk to summarise any actions at this stage?
Chair, we do have, I'm just counting the number of members we have at the minute, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we do have already some actions from yesterday's committee stage evidence, just in terms of writing to the sponsor about areas that the committee has been unpicking and that were stickier areas. So I would propose to add to that correspondence the points that have been discussed there with the Integrated Education Fund, in terms of Clause 7, parental preference, and the last two items that were mentioned there, just at the very end. Did you have anything additional, Chair or members?
No, I think that covers most issues. I'm conscious that we've run over time slightly, but that was primarily to include all members that had joined there. Members content with those actions? Yep. Okay. Okay, Clarke. Thank you. Any other business, members? No. Okay. Thanks very much. Yeah, Robbie. Yeah. Go ahead.
Have you any other colours of shirt apart from blue and white? I'm going to see something else next week.
You can send me one of your fancy ones.
Here, okay. I'll take those when you finish with them. Cheers, buddy.
Okay, members, thanks for attending this additional formal meeting in relation to the committee stage of the Integrated Education Bill. The date and time of our next formal meeting is next Wednesday, Clarke. Yeah, at
Next Wednesday at 9:15.
9:15. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
members. So look forward to seeing you then. The committee meeting does now adjourn. Thank you.
Good weekend, guys. Bye.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.